I once did a book signing and one person showed up. One person. So I pulled up a chair and sat down next to him. What do you want to talk about? We got started late today, and I apologize. I'll explain later, not today, but I'll explain later down the road for you insiders to understand what kind of stuff happens behind the scenes here at Lehto's Law. But I had a phone call today with somebody in another state, and when we were arranging the phone call, we agreed it would be noon, and I assumed he meant noon my time. No, noon his time. So that pushed into the live stream start, and I apologize for that. But in the room with me already are Bob and Idris and Michael and Democratia and Dan Boyd, Ben Leach, Mark Miller, and all kinds of other people, Mad Hatter Matt, Andrew Zubke, Charles Layton in Leachville, Kung Fu Grip. Remember when G.I. Joe got his Kung Fu Grip? Richard Terhune. I am McNathan. Fatty Butterpants. Duncan Campbell. Good morning, Steve. And good morning to you, my friend, down under. JJ. What's the J stand for? J. Bill McMahon. Hello. Dead Dog Rising. How are you doing? Hope you're doing well. I am, in fact, doing quite well. Thank you very much for asking. We've been having great weather here in Michigan as far as dry and sunny conditions go. Probably pushing 80 today. We had a little sprinkle go through yesterday, but barely enough to even make things shiny. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. So Trish Arnold, Jemmy Bridges, S. Gutag, all kinds of other people. Hey, don't worry, I'll get to you. Chuck Whitehead, DePaul 31, my good friend. How you doing? Jerry C. David Corset, number 1101 from New York. Scott Summers, R. Herman. Great video this morning. Thank you very much. I love dumb criminal stories. They don't do as well on my channel, but I still do it. Dan Boyd says you could have muted the mic and let us see that you had a phone call. Hadn't thought of that. Hey, ain't that Steve talking on the phone? David Peterson checking in from Texas. Now the chat's starting to go by like there's actually activity here. Richard Ockman, better late than never. There you go. Dead Dog Rising, perhaps you should try shiny pants as opposed to fancy pants. Duncan Campbell, you're doing something fun. No, it was fun. It was a phone call with somebody that I enjoyed speaking with. But Daniel Kester, hi, everyone. Hope everyone is doing well. And Jake Line, hello from Muskego, Wisconsin. It's my 22nd birthday. Really? It's your birthday today? Happy birthday, my friend. Interestingly, we got a town in Michigan called Muskegon, which is Muskegon, over on the west side of the state. But Muskego is probably from a similar derivation of a native tongue. Dan Boyd is proud to be from Dayton. Michelle, happy Sunday from Indiana. Indiana wants me. R. Dean Taylor. Ram 50 V8. Hello, Steve Lehto. Greetings from warm, hazy. Harrison, Arkansas. Hobie Jackson, hello. Dead Dog Rising. DVS lawyer likes to hear my thoughts about recent events in the news. And as you know, I do not talk about a variety of things, and that will be one of them that I don't talk about. Xerxion says, forget fancy pants. You need space pants. All right, I just need more space around the waist of my pants. How's that? Xerxion, happy birthday to a fellow September 14th. Oh, pissed off handicap guy had lots of rain in the UP. Yeah, that's the thing about the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. They're in a whole different weather system. They'll get 6 feet of snow while it's still sunny down here, So, Bob will be staying after class. Yes, I will. I like to look at the length of the live stream. It's in the top left-hand corner over there. And I'll look to see for that to hit the 2-hour mark. That's when I consider a full show. Win, do you have any opinions on Weird Al Yankovic? I got a couple opinions. They're not that weird, but one is I've always thought he's very clever. And number two, he took Puddle's Pity Party on the road this year as his warm-up. And you got to love that because I love Puddle's Pity Party. So there you go. Thank you for your support of IJ Sardasozo. Thank you very much, my friend. I love the Institute for Justice. They do great work. They take on a lot of cases that other people will not. And I get phone calls and messages from time to time. People say, Steve, I contacted the Institute for Justice. They wouldn't take my case. And I have to say, well, I'm sorry. I don't speak for them in that sense. but I do know that they get more requests for help they could ever possibly take on. So, unfortunately, they have to turn down some righteous cases. They do. It's just unfortunately got to do that. Bob Nell from Ovid, Michigan, named after the poet. And I know that every time I mention this, it starts an argument. But on the sign for the town of Ovid, Michigan. Oh, wait, no, hang on a second. Hang on. I'm thinking of Omer, Michigan. Never mind. Ovid's different. I was about I was about to go off on a tangent. I realized that tangent is not only irrelevant, but it's a dumb tangent. Oh boy. Isaac Bob York, that sounds like an awesome combo. Weird Al and Puddles. GM, I saw Puddles Pity Party in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania. I saw him at the Royal Oak Music Theater a couple years ago. I'm telling you right now, I've seen more shows in the last 5 years than I could possibly even sit down and tell you about in 45 minutes. And I would say he was one of the most entertaining shows of all. And it's just amazing how good that guy is. So, Dan Boyd, Weird Al had a 3-hour special on MTV back in the 90s. I don't remember hearing about that. I did not see that. Anthony. Hello, Steve. Hello, Anthony. Chuck Whitehead, you think they should make a law to prohibit AI from courts? The sad part is there already is law and rule in place that says that you've got to read what you submit to the court and it's got to make sense and can't be frivolous or stupid. And that should cover it, but they may have to be more specific, I guess. Skylar Perone, hello from North Carolina State University in Raleigh. Happy Sunday. And to you, my friend. Daniel Kester, is a CRL in today? I think she might be. She and I exchanged notes a few minutes ago. Kayla McComber says Okemos, Michigan is where I was raised as a teenager. Okemos is not far from Lansing, our state's capital. Ron Harris, how is life treating you, Steve? It's treating me pretty good. Been pretty good. Scott Summers, don't blink while you're going through Omer. Yeah, nor Ovid. Steve points out that Puddles has got a great cover of Radiohead's "Creep." He's got a lot of great covers. He's done some amazing covers. Dan Boyd says it was called Weird Al TV, if I remember correctly. Stone, yo, Steve. Bob Davis says UHF was the name of the Weird Al special. Well, there was a not TV show. There was a movie called UHF, wasn't there? John Van Boxtel. Hello, Steve from Ontario, Canada. Our good friends and neighbors to the north. 116-3562. Good afternoon, Mr. Steve. I mentioned last week I had a client who called me that, and he was from another country, and he had an accent, and he'd roll the R. Mr. Steve. Mr. Steve. Made it sound so exotic, Man known only as Jeff. Last car payment this month. You mean at this point it's free and clear? Isn't that a nice feeling when next month when you're getting ready to pay it, and you're like, oh, I don't have to pay that. It's like free money. Oh, bite me. I'm back. Daniel Kester, didn't Weird Al get a decent push from being on Dr. Demento? Dr. Demento, I believe, is credited with quote unquote discovering Weird Al. I think he was the first entity to play his stuff on the radio. Dead Dog Rising, Sunday. For only $10, come watch Mr. Lehto live. Well, it's actually free, but okay. Oh. Jason Finch is checking in from Macomb Township, Macomb, Michigan. I've been over there a few times recently over that east side way. I was over at Freedom Hill, saw a concert in that general direction not so long ago. So, Tyler Pasquale, it's 85 degrees in South Carolina. Yeah, I exchange messages quite often with my good friend JP, who's in South Carolina. And our temperature differences are usually about 20 to 30 degrees. So I guess beautiful here, 65. Yeah, 95 here. Oh boy. Corn Suckior 6782. Never been to Michigan, but I enjoy watching you and Alexis Doll. I'm not familiar with Alexis Doll. Hello, Steve from Napanee, Ontario, Canada. Believe in yourself. Steve G says it's pleasantly overcast in San Diego. Mark Miller is talking about someone texting while driving. I got rear-ended in traffic back in 2019 by a young lady who was texting and driving. And she got a ticket. I don't know what she got a ticket for. It may have been careless driving, but she did get ticketed. I saw the police officer handing her the ticket. And then when I got the police report, there's a checkbox. Was either driver ticketed? And if so, check this box. Anthony says he saw the B-52s at Freedom Hill Amphitheater one day before 9/11. Wow. It's a while ago. Ron Harris reminds us that Steve is at almost 600,000 subscribers. Let's get him over the top. Please subscribe. I never tell people to subscribe or hit the thumbs up button. I don't do that. Oh, by the way, the Canadian robot lady will be here, she says. But as of this exact moment in time, I have 598,343 subscribers. I'll cross 600,000 probably Wednesday or Thursday, if I had to guess. It's just a steady thing. Locked on Law. Do you ever feel like all someone wants to do is argue with you? Are you not familiar with the internet? Yes. And what's a trend I've been noticing lately is I'll get emails from people who accuse me of being ignorant, and then they'll say that I don't know something. And for you to say, I can't believe you didn't know this. And it'll be something I put in a video. So I did the video not too long ago about the guy who got the ticket for his EV exhaust being too loud. And the joke was not that the car was loud. It's that the police officer actually said, your exhaust is too loud. And at one point mentioned a muffler. Now, I mentioned in the video that those cars have got simulated engine sounds, but they come out of a speaker, not a muffler, not an exhaust. I had people writing me emails, messaging me, calling my office and going, what, are you stupid? Don't you realize that car's got a simulated engine sound? How stupid are you? How stupid are you that you don't watch the whole video? And I mean, that's just one example. I can think of dozens of examples where I mention something in a video and I say, by the way, this is important to remember. And people stop the video and start hammering out an angry response and then hit send. And it's like I guess probably once in every 5 or 10,000 of those that happens, I'll get an email from someone who goes, oops, I'm sorry, I hadn't watched your whole video. But no one ever does. Almost no one ever does. It's crazy. Zach, do you get recognized in public now that you are famous? I'll separate that out. I don't think I'm famous, but I do get recognized in public, which freaks me out. Most recently, I was in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan in line to go into a restaurant on the Sunday before Labor Day. And a guy looks over and goes, you're Steve Lehto. Yes, I am. Nice to meet you. Oh, boy. Kathleen Bile, lawyers are professional arguers. Yes, but we argue for a reason, and we're usually arguing a valid point. I've encountered some attorneys who argue stupid points. I've done videos about that. But when somebody watches 1 minute of my video, or worse, just responds to the headline, I've had people say, you did a video on such and such. I can't believe you don't know. And I'm like, did you watch the video? No, I didn't watch the video. Why should I watch the video? You're wrong. You can tell I'm wrong from the title of the video. Wow, that's interesting. Johnny Quest says I believe it was around 187,000 when I subscribed. I had somebody else tell me today that they subscribed and had 60,000 subscribers, which is a while ago. Stone says it could be ignorant cops harassing me for educating the public. You know what's funny is I actually got an email a couple days ago from a guy who goes, Steve, I need you to call me. We can have a conversation. He goes, and I can, after one conversation, convince you to stop being such a cop lover. And so people project. They project. That means that they look at somebody and go, they're either exactly the opposite of me or they're identical to me. So there you go. And Lockdown Law points out, do not call Steve's office about YouTube videos, which of course I had to put in the credits to my videos because people do it all the time. Matthias is checking in from Amsterdam today, not Berlin. Out there traveling around, my friend. Good to hear from you. Glad you're checking in. And I apologize, but I've not gotten your package yet. I went to the post office just yesterday to double check. I knew I was going to be doing a live stream today. And no, nothing. So I don't know what happened. So there you go. Fatty Butterpants, do people introduce themselves by their username? I've had a couple people do that, but most people walk up and go, hey, Steve, and they know it's my name. And they go, I'm Bob, whatever. So Ram 50 V8's got 24 subscribers after 15 years. Oh, Paul Harris, I subscribed to you at 597,980.4. Shiznit, do you hear about the case in Ohio where the woman took legal possession of a dealership name? Yeah, I did not do a video on that, and I probably will, but I keep thinking that there'll be a resolution that would make sense. Zafar Syed, howdy, Steve. Isn't it the last Sunday of summer? You know, the 21st is often the first day of a new season, but I know sometimes it can float a tiny little bit. But you're probably right. Now I have to go back and retitle the video. So, Mark Keppel, I'm still in Buffalo. Nothing wrong with that. I like Buffalo. Lewis Browning was separating a 10-pound box of bacon, then went and picked a dozen tomatoes. Locked on Law, I unsubscribed from my own channel. I found I had nothing of value to add to the conversation. Matthias, did you receive a postcard with a tracking code? No, I've not. I've not received a postcard from you either. DePaul, I subscribed in October of 2017 when you first started doing the Sunday live streams. That was a while ago. That was 1, 2, 3 studios ago. Just a flesh wound, subscribe because you are allowed to pass. Well, we'll call it a draw. How's that? Oh, boy. SKS Hugo, no pop-up ads here in the comment section. The last few lives I've watched had a pop-up. Not of mine. I do not monetize these until afterwards. So if you're watching now, you should not be seeing any ads. If you're watching this later, there might be ads, and I apologize. But I do what I can to try to minimize the advertising presence. Vinny Sluga, hello, Steve. How you doing? Pretty good. Pretty good. You know, Bob Blah Blah goes, what happened to the Friday night show? You mean on my backup channel? I forgot. I literally sat down this morning. I thought, oh, I wonder how my backup channel's video is doing. I went and looked and I didn't have one. I'm like, did I forget to put one up? And I'm so used to just putting up videos every morning that I forget, like, oh yeah, you need one for Friday evening. So I might put one up later. We'll see. Locked on Live, admit I'm waiting impatiently for a stuffed woodchuck to appear on your studio shelving. Well, there is one back there that somebody knitted me. It's a knitted woodchuck. But for those who don't know or don't follow me on Facebook, which you can do if you want to, but you're not required to, I did, in fact, have the problems with the woodchuck a couple years ago, of course. And then I, of course, discovered a woodchuck in my backyard a couple days ago. And that's dangerously close to the house. So I had to go out and have a little confab with him, as I would call it. and explained to him that you are not welcome here, my friend. Please move on. And so he skedaddled and ran off into the brush line over, like, he kept going the direction he's going in that image. And I didn't see him for another hour. Then I looked out my front window and he's out front. And I go out to I'm like, dude, I just talked to you about being in my yard. Skedaddle. So he took off and I saw him one more time. I've not hurt him. I'm not going to hurt him. Woodchucks are here before I was, but he needs to stay away from my house. So we'll see how that goes. DePaul 31 says Labor Day is still messing with your schedule. There you go. There you go. Stone, I've been watching casually since 2019 or so. Paul Kovalchuk, good evening from Slovakia, former Bostonian. So you left Boston to go to Cool. Bite Me says that looks like we could call a groundhog or a squeal pig. It's also called a whistle pig of all things, but woodchuck, groundhog, whistle pig, and a million other things. But yeah, but the problem is they burrow. They burrow. And so they burrow underneath cement. So if you have a patio, for instance, or a sidewalk, if they get underneath it, they will dig underneath it because they like to have that solid cement roof. You can't let them do that because it gets ugly. Fatima Butterpan says a 600 subscriber could win a set of Ginsu knives. Ginsu knives. Matthias says, I'll send you a replacement t-shirt, but the parcel service to the U.S. from Germany is kind of suspended due to the daily changing tariff policy. Yeah, why don't you just wait on that for a little bit? We'll figure it out later. Richard Trahoon says you can catch them and have the woodchuck taxidermy and display them on your shelf. I think somebody else is getting that at that earlier, but like I said, I don't mind wildlife as long as it doesn't try to actually invade my living space. Randy Regal has been watching me since you had plain white background and wore dress shirts. That's over 10 years ago. But yeah, I did. Shoy says my neighbor had a woodchuck in his wood pile. Took him months to catch it. Well, the thing about it is, like I said, I have no problem with them as long as they stay away from my house. And so I've got a little bit of buffer around my house, places they could be, I'd be happy with. I just worry when I see them lounging, 10 feet from my back door. I'm like, that's a little too close, a little too close. MH08 says, and the beard, but the beard was 2018. So that was, that's 7 years ago, but. One 116-3562 says you could use a live trap and release it at a state park. Yeah, believe it or not, in Michigan, they've got laws against moving and transporting wild animals. Because I once had a red squirrel that got into the attic of a house I was living in a long time ago. And somehow he wound up in a county park 10 miles away. And I mentioned it to somebody, go, hey, that's against the law. Okay, that's against the law, but if I kill him, it's not. I mean, come on. So Zafar Sayed says, no worries, Steve. You can make next Sundays the last of summer 25 because according to Google, the autumn equinox in 2025 will occur on Monday, September 22nd. And that often does have it where it goes like this. Kayla McComber, we have a buck that likes to hang out in our yard. You mean a deer with horns? Antlers? The reason I'm saying that is also some of the people who follow me on Facebook would know this, but I have recently had that fellow in my backyard, and you can see the horns on him, antlers, whatever. And I'm just curious to know if he encounters the woodchuck, if those two might duke it out. But at that point, I put my money on the deer. So, Mark Miller, do you have thoughts on how to combat ageism when trying to find work? My sister wants me to shave off my mustache and goatee. That's an interesting point. It depends what kind of job you're applying for. Because technically speaking, in many places, they're not supposed to be basing it on your age, but as we all know, it's a natural thing that they're going to be referring to. Matthias says we are traveling on our way to Newcastle upon Tyne. Retirement has its perks. Richard Terhune, did you ever receive the Hot Wheels Superbird I sent you a few weeks ago? Yes, I did. In fact, it's sitting on my desk right there, and I held it up on camera in a recent video. It might not have been on air yet. Just not sure where it goes. Frank J.C. the third, I had the great squirrel invasion of 2006 in my old house. The Shadow, we have turkey. Oh, I've got turkeys. I've got turkeys. I've got turkeys. Turkeys, though, are weird. They'll be around for a while, then disappear for a while. So they must have a pretty large territory they roam through. Carl's Corners here, better late than never, and I agree. Dan Boyd, squirrels will chew the insulation off your wiring. Yeah, sadly, squirrels will chew, woodchucks will chew, raccoons will chew also. I like raccoons, but they can be destructive. They get inside the house. So, Elliot Polak, someone in my tiny Indiana town posted a desire to scatter nails in their driveway to stop trespassers. Had to teach her about booby trap laws. I am an L1, which is the first year of law school at Purdue, lest you forget. Thank you for reminding me. And I'm taking off my watch. So for those of you who go, hey, what happened to your watch? It's here, but I keep hitting it on the desk. But interestingly, the other problem with nails in your driveway is what happens when you back down it? Can you actually like pick them all up like with precision? But yeah, all you need is a police officer to pull his car in there, come up and knock on your door for a legitimate reason, and come out and find he's got 4 flat tires and watch what happens. So, as a lawyer, Elliot, I'm going to teach you to think like a lawyer. It's like in a math class, you're always looking for the edges in a mathematical formula, like in calculus, the extremes and so on. Do that with an argument. So ask yourself, you put nails in your driveway, there's a good effect. What's the worst that could happen? I'd say the worst that could happen would be like a fire truck or an ambulance pulls in to turn around in an emergency and gets a bunch of flat tires, and then you get caught. So think of that. Royale with cheese says, you look like a lawyer. Okay. Dan DM Montrose here. I once had an argument with somebody about whether it's Montrose or Montrose. It's how hard you pop the T, I guess. Did not know that was a thing. Dan DM, do you have any thoughts on property taxes and school bonds? You know, it's hard to say. I like education. I tend to vote for school bonds when they're there. But property taxes are also quite high. In fact, I had to cut a check recently, pay my property taxes. I think actually they're due on Monday, so I paid them Friday. I actually walk them in. So John Michael Karma says Woodchuck wasn't lounging, it was a recon. That's my concern. He's looking around going, okay, I got this far. Nothing bad has happened yet. Carl's Corner, love your videos, but can you put the ad after Heather's outro? In the one ad I do every 2 months? Oh, you know, there's an argument to be made both ways. But you know, I unfortunately, I put the ad at the end of the video, and then I put the credits at the end of everything, and I kind of have to do that. So she's always gone with the credits, but I don't run that many ads, even the ones at the end of the videos. I don't think I had any last month. I had one this month, you know. So I'm sorry, but it might not change. Fatty McButterpants, education doesn't require a $50 million school. Bill Morris, your driveway, and who is to say it wasn't an accident? No one. But the point is that it's probably not the best way to handle that. But you can do anything you want and live dangerously. And you can always make those kinds of arguments, and someone might buy it. So Power 2084. How'd you get the license plate in the Thai language? Can you explain? It's not on the set right now. I think it's. Hang on. Look at that. Look at that. Someone requests it and I pop it out. Or I don't know. It might go this way. I don't know. But the reason I have that is that a viewer sent it in, and that's the explanation for 99% of the stuff on my set. So if you don't know what it is and where I get it from, you say, "Oh, probably sent in by a viewer." So I get a lot of people who go, "Oh, so you must be in the Coast Guard because you have that Coast Guard plaque." I took it down, but another story altogether. But no, someone in the Coast Guard sent it in. And a lot of stuff's been sent in by viewers. And the real license plates, there's a couple of them up there that aren't mine that were donated by viewers who said, "I have an extra license plate. Would you like it?" I'm like, "Sure, why not?" So Power 2084 says that wasn't the correct orientation the first time. That's what I thought. Bob Davis, Lehto Law. You know what's really funny is I've had about 100 people say that it's correct, and one person actually going nuts saying it was incorrect. It was so far off, no one understood it. And it's like, okay. I have to go by the vast majority of people who are telling me it's correct. Steve, I always watch the few ads you have after some of your videos. Does that help you out? Well, the ones that are tacked on where it's me promoting something like Factor, simply watching that ad doesn't help me any. I mean, not really. But the ads that occur that are placed there by YouTube, yes, it does help me. But live your life. Don't worry about me. Padre, I still have the tag from the car I had in 1982. I wish I had my old tags. I don't. Oh, Mexican Spec. What color is the shirt and the cup? And believe it or not, this is a blue cup. It was not. There's nothing. It was mere coincidence. Mere coincidence. Mark Miller, don't forget to hydrate. JR points out if you must be in the Coast Guard because of a Coast Guard plaque, that means you were in the Civil War because of the swords. Absolutely. And World War I, because there's a World War I naval officer's sword right there on my set. So I was an officer in the U.S. Navy in World War I. Oh, Power 2084 claims that his, hang on, Google Translate can translate that for us. There you go. Stone says I could be Napoleon. I think I'm too tall. Oh. Power 2084 says that the Google Translate reads that as Lehto Law, Bangkok. Okay. Gustavo, why does he have two desk chairs? You mean the one I'm sitting in and the one right there? Number one, because the sponsor gave them to me. Number two, I don't have to keep pushing them back and forth. And believe it or not, there's so little space right here, between that bookcase and the desk I sit at over there that it's hard to get the chair in and out of there. So I'd rather leave the chair there. So. And GR points out that I do indeed have two desks because you can guess there's a desk right here. It really is. By the way, the desk I'm sitting at was made by my brother, the one who passed away in April. And so I've got about a dozen pieces of his furniture. And one of the pieces is this desk I'm at right now. Shows from my source. Steve had a crappy chair here at the live stream years ago. Yeah. Years ago, I had a folding chair, and people got all bent out of shape about it. So then I uh, replaced it with a wooden chair. People are like, "What are you doing sitting in a wooden chair?" And I'm like, this is the kind of thing that really upsets people on the internet, I guess. So 858 Bill says, I checked an hour ago and you weren't here, so I napped, and now just look at what I missed. Well, you missed 35 minutes of a whole lot of nothing. Oh boy. Oh, sorry for your loss, Anthony, Dustin Carpenter, Kale McComber. Yeah, thank you very much. I talked about my brother back then. In fact, I even posted a video about him on my backup channel. And so I've talked quite a bit about him here. Dan DM, do you follow anyone on YouTube? I follow Pilot Debrief, Hoover, who talks about airplane crashes, and I follow Agidmator, who's a chess analyst from I think Croatia, and a couple others, but those are the two I tend to watch the most. And I watched one this morning by Hoover, a Pilot Debrief about an airplane crash I hadn't heard about, but it's amazing the analysis that guy puts into those videos. So Brianna CC, how did Seinfeld become so popular? That's actually a good question. 'Cause I liked Seinfeld quite a bit, the TV show. I was not a fan of his stand-up. And I remember when his show started, people started coming to me going, Steve, you've got to watch Seinfeld. And I go, why? I don't like him. And but it's not about him. It's a whole different thing. I'm like, what's different about it? And no one could ever really explain it that well. They just go, well, it's just different. It's different. I'm like, hmm. And I don't know. It was probably 2 or 3 seasons in when I started watching, and I'm going, wait a second, this is funny. And it was different. It was just very, very different. And it doesn't appeal to everybody, but some of the shows, and by the way, what's funny is like the true Seinfeld people that I know are all like, oh, I think the contest is the best episode ever, which is what everybody talks about. But no, George's opposite day is the best episode ever. There are some others, but that's my favorite one. So there you go. Stone likes the hand model episode. Well, I don't want to be a pirate. Daniel Kester, been watching your channel long enough to remember you with your hand in a cast. But I didn't have my hand in a cast actually on the show. I put up a photograph of myself with a hand in a cast, right? When I crashed my mountain bike. Lewis Browning, we're going to get you a puffy shirt. Yeah, don't. I won't wear it. See, Seinfeld had no choice. He had to wear the puffy shirt. I won't wear a puffy shirt. Oh. Southern Torrent, hey, Steve, did you get my email? Is that a rhetorical question? I'm not sure. I get hundreds of emails a day. Oh, yeah, don't forget about George's Velcro wallet. Or are you talking about the wallet that was fat? Oh, it wasn't George's Velcro wallet. It was Jerry who threw away a Velcro wallet. Okay. Lyle McCullough says, this is Lyle from K-Pac. You're talking about the town of K-Pac, because that's the town where the Tucker family lived when Preston Tucker was born. I was in K-Pac about a month ago. So, Dan DM, who's your favorite musician? It's a tough call. Currently touring, or of all time, or whose music I listen to the most? I like a bunch of different stuff. Right now, bands that are still touring right now. I would probably have to go with Blue October. I've seen them 5 times. I'm going to see them again this year. I love them. They're out of Texas. Many people don't know them. We talk about this from time to time. Kayla McComber, Man Purse. It's European, first of all. And the bro or the manzier. Yeah, 116-3562. George's wallet exploding from all the receipts. I believe the one that put it over the top was free guitar lessons. Stone, favorite singer. Oh, there's a bunch. It depends on the style and so on, you know. Southern Tour, I sent you an email about a patent story. Oh, yes, I saw that. I did not do a video about it. Um, I would have thought I responded, but maybe I didn't. I apologize. William Page, good morning, Steve. It is great to see you. Kevin Lawrence, have you ever watched Corner Gas? No, I have not. I don't think so. Stone likes Janis Joplin. Janis Joplin was an absolute force of nature. Uh, Sadly, her life was cut short. But yeah, I mean, she's one of those people you hear her and you know it's her. Just so hard to do. Elliot Pollock says, first thing I thought about with the nails in the driveway was reckless homicide. If things went really wildly out of control, like if somebody came up the driveway, got flat tires, took off, and their car went wildly out of control after that or something, it's possible. R. Herman, did you post on your second channel Friday? No, I did not. I apologize. I apologize. Bob blah blah asked about that earlier, and it didn't even occur to me this morning. I'm like, wait, I forgot to post. Mark Miller, are you going to modify your Jeep? No, probably not. I do still have the doors off, but I've got the top on it still. So I'm driving around right now with the doors off, but the top up. I took the top down earlier this summer. I was driving it all summer long with no top, no doors. Then it started getting chilly out, and I thought, I need to know that I can put the top up if I have to. So I put the top up, and I thought, something, I'll put the doors on later. I haven't put those on. It'll take 3 minutes to put them on. So James Chamelik says it's a man's ear or a bro's ear. No, I don't think they ever said bro's ear. I just said bro as opposed to a bra. But hey. Fred Blowers, I love going to Trans-Siberian Orchestra concert every year. I've only seen them one time. And what's funny about TSO, and I had so many people say, you got to go see Trans-Siberian Orchestra. I go, well, why? Why? And no one could explain it to me properly. And if I explain it now, it won't make any sense. But it's one of those things where you go see it and you're like, oh, this is amazing. It is amazing. Now, MH08 says, tried it, didn't take. And I understand that also. Austin Foster agrees that it is, in fact, Manzira, comma, or virgule, bro. John N. Jr. Jeeps made to be modified. In what way? Like all jacked up with like light bars and stuff and a winch? Jay Torres, what's the favorite place you've ever visited in the U.S.? That's a tough call. My favorite place on earth is probably Copper Harbor, Michigan. It's a little town at the tip of the Keweenaw Peninsula, about 10, 12 hours north of Detroit, depending on how fast you drive, and whether or not any local constabulary stops to chit-chat with you along the drive. But it's just a neat little town. It feels like it's on the edge of the planet, but in a good way. So Showstrom said, I just accidentally did an entire project I thought was due today, but is actually due in 2 months. All I had to do is select the topic today. What's funny about that is you should go like, wow, I got that out of the way, but somehow you'll still feel like you got ripped off somehow, right? So Fatty Butter Pants is my favorite place, is my living room. Well, I like my living room too, but the problem is if I say my living room, people are gonna go, well, can I come visit? I want to see your living room. So I assume you're talking about what's a favorite place that you can recommend to other people. But again, I admit I'm reading into that. By the way, today's Gatorade is half water, half frost flavored Gatorade. I don't know what flavor Frost is, but the color is like light gray. So I don't really know what that is. So yeah, what of says you had a late start. Yeah, I had a very, very important phone call that I had to make this morning. And I thought it was supposed to be at noon, which I guess isn't really morning, but it was noon where my other party was at. So got a little started late. Mike Nichols found my favorite restaurant in Wolverine, Michigan, about 10 miles south of Indian River, the Thirsty Sturgeon. That's a good name for a restaurant or a bar. Sturgeon, of course, are wonderful animals. The Indian River is a major river that flows through that part of the state. Wolverine's a small town up in that general area. I'll have to check that out. The Thirsty Sturgeon. Dr. Rick, happy to see you and to you, my friend. Ember Mist 69 says, I believe Frost is a version of grape. Wouldn't grape be purple? Isn't that our standard? Vinny Northwest, favorite place, Yellowstone National Park. I've never been there. There's a bunch of those places I've never been. I've driven across the country 4 or 5 times, but there's a bunch of places I've never been to. So, Fat and Butter Pants says, Steve, I stole your half Gatorade, half water idea. Well, I do that because I quite often am here for 2 hours. And in 2 hours, I don't want to drink 2 Gatorades. That's too sugary. And pure water doesn't quite do it either. So, Dan DM, what's your favorite cuisine? Favorite cuisine? That's tough. I like a good hamburger, believe it or not, but I also like a good filet mignon. Oh boy. Manuel Guerra, I bought spare GoPro camera batteries a couple weeks ago. Decided to look at them while watching, and it turns out they're the wrong batteries. Oh, yeah. GoPro can't get out of their own way. Some of their equipment's really cool. I've got probably 10 or 15 GoPro cameras of different generations, and I use them mounted on cars and to do interviews and to go outside and film stuff. But the problem is that from one generation to the next, it's often different batteries, different configurations, different um, uh, attachments and stuff. And it turns out that it's unfortunate because like I bought 3 of the GoPro 12s, but I've got 3 of those little cubes. I forgot what they're called. They're really cool, but and then if you shoot something on one and shoot something on the other at the same time, the exposures are different for some weird reason. So I don't know. Southern Torrent says, don't try to take a selfie with a bison. I swear every year we hear of at least one person in Yellowstone getting gored. I've seen recent video of that also. I have a t-shirt I've worn on camera that says, please do not try to pet the fluffy cows, which is that. So blah, blah, blah. Just got some filet mignon from Sam's. They're $24 a pound. That's about right, because if you go to a restaurant, you don't get a full pound of filet mignon. You get some smaller portion. Dan DM, do you play the lottery? I will if the one of those lottos hits $1 billion or more and I think about it, I'll buy a ticket. Just so I can say that theoretically I had a chance. I know I'm not going to win. I know I'm not, and I don't bet on sports. I will simply maybe once a year buy a lottery ticket for a multi-billion-dollar lottery. What's your favorite watch brand? Steve H. I like Breitling. I've got 2 Breitlings. Watches are an acquired taste. Either you like them or you don't. I think they're cool little machines. They're little works of art. But that's the answer to that question. Mexican Spec, is cow tipping a real thing or was it made up by Hollywood? I have no idea. I remember people talking about it and joking about it and going out and trying to do it. David Peterson says, if you have a buffalo crossing the road in front of you, don't honk at it. It might charge your vehicle. You got to understand, a buffalo or a bison or whatever, they're big animals. Like, you don't want to hit one. You don't, you got to, If you were in a parking lot and there were out of control shopping carts that weighed as much as that buffalo, you would you wouldn't go in the parking lot. Ed G, what temperature do you like your filet mignon? I like rare. I go medium rare. I go medium rare. So Sandra Jones, cow tipping is real, but I don't know what it is. Well, if your cow gives you really good service, 20% would be an appropriate tip. Um, However, if the cow gives you bad service, no tip. No tip for that cow. Bob Jones, do you fish? I haven't fished since I was 12 years old. Dan DM, do you garden? Nobody mow my lawn. Juan Peralta has true or false questions. Well, you can't ask me three questions in one sentence and then go true or false. Oh boy. Sandra Jones, I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm joking. Sorry about that. Joe Cram, rare or medium rare is good. Medium is okay. Medium well is unfriend, and well done is block. Zafar says the cow tipping might be required when you get fresh milk. There you go. MH08, if I buy a ticket in an income tax state win, can I then move to a non-income tax state before claiming the prize? That's an interesting question because the question then becomes when did you um, gain the income? The moment you won or when you went and turned it in? Because I'm sure you know that many lotteries you're allowed to turn your ticket in as far late as 364 days later. So the question then becomes if you were allowed to do that, obviously you could move to another state, set up residence there, make a killing on your saved income tax, and then move back. I have a sneaky feeling they're going to say that you ought to report the income at the moment you won, but I could be wrong on that. I'm not a tax. I'm not a tax advisor. Sandra Jones, I read a lot. That's where I gain a lot of knowledge. I read a lot too. I'm still plowing through the book I mentioned last week. Song of the Dodo. If you're interested in biology, Song of the Dodo. Song of the Dodo. Joe Palmer, taxation based on the state you purchased it in. Dan Diem, have you ever been to the Grand Rapids Art Fair, Art Festival, Art Prize? No, I have not. I'm very familiar with it, but I've never been there. But they have this gigantic art prize contest where they display the art all around town. Some of it outdoors, some of it indoors. It's a great way to get people to visit Grand Rapids, and a lot of it's pretty cool. But I've not actually seen it myself. Aaron Freeman says yes, constructive receipt. Oh. Power Rump Mike, did you know that Nevada doesn't have the lottery? What, they don't want competition for Las Vegas? Yoda Beast, I purchased your book on Preston Tucker and his battle to build the car tomorrow, and it arrived, and I'm excited to dive in. Thank you. Let me know how you think, what you think of it. Sandra Jones, if you like books on nature, my daughter bought one on how mosquitoes have affected history. Yeah, primarily through diseases they carry and pass and so on. Um, the title of the book would be helpful. Oh boy. Dan DM, most memorable movie. Memorable? That's a tough one. I like several movies. When people ask me like my favorite movies, I always like to mention That I like the movie The Prestige, which a lot of people don't like. I liked it a lot. I also liked Shakespeare in Love. You know how I am with romantic comedies. Oh, I guess that's not really a comedy in that sense. I also liked Amadeus. I know it's not historically accurate, but I like the movie. And so there you go. Mark Miller, Cool Hand Luke. Haven't seen that one in years. Haven't seen that one in years. Dustin Carpenter, The Hudsucker Proxy. Timothy Robbins was in a lot of movies with weird long names, but he's also in a movie called The Player, which is so funny. I saw that one recently a couple times. So Bob Blah Blah says the title of the book is Mosquitoes. They'll suck the life out of you just like my ex-wife. I have a sneaky feeling that's not true. Zafar said felt bad for Hudsucker. Hey, it's for the kids. It's for the kids. Fred Blowers, you pay taxes in the state you purchased the ticket. If you live in another state, they might want their share. Oh, that might be a problem. It might be everyone wants a share. Where you bought it, where you cashed it, where you live with it, you know. So Rob C. Ben Hur, best movie ever. If I've seen that, it would have been literally like 50 years ago. Prodigal Stranger, worst movie ever. The tie between Predestination, never seen it, and Manos, The Hands of Fate, which, by the way, has taken off on a life of its own with the Mystery Science Theater guys, or else Riff Tracks. But yeah, that's just a bad movie. It was executed poorly. The script made no sense. It was shot in like a $3 budget, but it's comical to watch with the right soundtrack. Padre didn't care for Flash Gordon. Hi, I'm Ming, Emperor of the Universe. Oh, Flash Gordon, New York Jets, quarterback. Standard Deviation, Harold and Maude. Yeah, that's a bit of a lesser known movie, a little unusual. I watched that about a year ago. A friend of mine recommended it to me. It was interesting. David Peterson, Catholic high school girls in trouble, which I believe is a joke in the sense that it was a movie within the movie, Kentucky Fried Movie, right? Am I correct in thinking that? Iggy, RLK, you ever visit a local malt shop? A local malt shop. Yeah, yeah. Me and the boys are going to a sock hop later too. You know what a malt is. There actually is an A&W drive-in that I've driven by recently. I don't know if they have malts there, but it kind of reminds me of that. Dan DM, what was your first job? Well, I had paper routes. I had a Detroit Free Press route for many years, and then after that, I worked at a gas station where I pumped gas and drove a tow truck. Sandra Jones, my apologies, but I have a brain injury, had numerous concussions, and now have a brain bleed. No need to apologize. We're just having a discussion here amongst friends. So, Mike Lackner, Buckaroo Banzai was so bad that it was fun. Yeah, it had a couple funny moments in it, and I know people who swear that that movie's funny. It just didn't do it for me. But well, Bill 57, What Dreams May Come, best Robin Williams movie that no one remembers. Um, I would agree with that on one level, although he was quite good in Insomnia. Although Insomnia was an American remake, I believe, of a Swedish film, Swedish or Norwegian, and the original was better than the American film. But the American film was made by Christopher Nolan with Robin Williams and some other people in it, like Robert De Niro. But I'm sorry, Al Pacino. Al Pacino. And the interesting thing is that What Dreams May Come was a remarkable film for how it looked, like what they did on the screen. And I hate movies that need an excuse to do CGI or something. And that movie, it fit perfectly. But I always found that movie rather profound because people don't know, and for whatever reason, especially movie critics have a hard time talking about movies if they can't say what the definition of the movie is or what kind of movie it is. Is it a comedy? Is it what kind of movie is it? And so, what dreams may come? What is it? Because it's about people after they die. Is that fantasy? What is that? But the thing is, deep down, it's a love story. It's just a love story that's done really, really well in a very, very unusual setting. I loved that movie. I thought it was fantastic. But you're right, a lot of people don't remember it. So there you go. Faticati, have you seen how judges in the court hid evidence in the Rekieta law case to keep a rich family in town from being embarrassed? Uh, no. Is this the case with the Murdoch family, or is it another case? I'm not 100% certain on the case you're referring to, and I apologize. And if I was, I'd tell you. But there's a few cases I've not been following. I recognize that name vaguely. Zafar said, "This is what dreams may come" was a downer. Oh, that's true. People died. 858 Bill. Yeah, we often reference the Monty Python and the Holy Grail movie. And it is one of the greatest movies ever made for a variety of reasons. And that movie stands up so well to repeated viewings, too. Faticati says the drug addict son submitted his arrest body camera into evidence, and then the court removed it from the record after police were seeing it and FOIA'd it. Okay, I was unaware of any of that. So Dustin Carpenter, it's only a model. If you poke around online, you can actually find a working script from that movie, actual screenplay, and it has scenes that were deleted. And "it's only a model" line was actually in the original screenplay, I believe 3 or 4 times. So Elliot Polach says, now that Indiana became the second state to allow online grads admission, they're back to sandbox looking for ways to license more lawyers. Huh. Yeah, University of Detroit, the law school I taught at. I didn't attend it, but I taught there. Just recently announced that they're going to have some all online school classes now, where you can apparently take law school there from anywhere remotely. And I don't care what anybody says, that the in classroom experience of law school is extremely important, especially if you ever plan on litigating. The idea that somebody can study law online and then walk into a courtroom and face off with a judge, I wouldn't think so. Johnny Z. Fradley, I saw The Notebook in a theater by myself. The Notebook is the punchline to a joke off the Big Bang Theory, where a bunch of the guys are sitting around watching a computer screen because it's satellite imagery or something. They're looking for something to happen in outer space. And as they're sitting there, I believe it's Penny who says, "So what, we're going to sit here and look at the screen for hours hoping something happens?" And one of the guys goes, "Yeah, you made me watch The Notebook." Jim Farrar, Apocalypse Now. Apocalypse Now is one of those argument starters. I love that movie, but I can tell you that I've had people tell me how much they hate that movie, including I had people go, "Oh, Steve, I know people who are in the military who are offended by that movie because, that's not the movie's not a documentary, and it's true that he did use the names of some actual units and so on, which he could have changed that, instead of the 7th Cavalry, could have made it like the 39th Cavalry or something. But It's basically the novella by Joseph Conrad, Heart of Darkness, set in Vietnam. That's it. Once you if you ever read Heart of Darkness and then see that movie, you're like, oh, of course. And as far as that goes, it was pretty cool. So I liked that movie a lot. I saw it at the theater several times before, it was its first run. And despite how long it was, I got to go back and see that again. Faticati says, not the police, the people were seeing the body cam. You should look into it and maybe pass it on to the IJ. Is a First Amendment violation. Well, I'm sure the IJ is aware of it, and they probably looked at it. So, but I'll take a look. Dan Diem, have you ever watched To Kill a Mockingbird? Yes, we've talked about that before. I enjoyed that movie a lot. The book is good. I believe that the courtroom scenes are pretty good, and I do agree that it's one of the best movies ever made in America. So, Sandra Jones goes, that movie was not as bad as The Deer Hunter. You said it, not me. I actually know people. A GP in First Cavalry. I'm sorry. I've got Seventh Cavalry on my brain. The Deer Hunter. I know people who love that movie, and it's got a bunch of really strange things, including a bunch of guys who get drafted and all wind up in the exact same platoon somehow. Like I thought the Army sent you places, and you know. Faticati says, Go Set a Watchman should not have been released. I agree wholeheartedly. Go Set a Watchman was something that Lee Harper left behind after she passed away, and it was an early draft of, in essence, To Kill a Mockingbird, and they treated it like it was a second book that she just hadn't released yet. And I have a problem with that anyway, because quite frankly, if you are an author and you got something ready to go, you'd tell people about it. You wouldn't just hide it and go, oh, I hope somebody finds it after I die and I hope they release it. No, that's not how it works. Safar Syed, can you imagine trying to learn law or medicine in a completely virtual environment? Some people might go, well, gee, I don't know, law. It's just you're reading and answering questions and stuff. I guarantee you that if you're in a classroom and a professor calls on you, goes, stand up. I want to ask you some questions, and starts firing questions at you about what you're supposed to have read yesterday. It's very different than if you're behind a camera on the other side of the internet and they call on you. Yes. And I mean, what am I going to tell somebody? Don't look at your book, answer the questions. I mean, come on. Jason Brindamar, what were you doing when 9/11 happened? I was listening to Drew and Mike at work. I was driving into work and actually was listening to Howard Stern. Gary Delabate broke in and said, hey, guys, a plane just hit the World Trade Center. And Howard said, how big of a plane? Like, because don't forget, there had been a guy in a smaller thing that had hit the Statue of Liberty like a week earlier, just unrelated. And Gary goes, no, it's serious. This is serious. And so Howard and the guys on the radio very quickly focused all their attention on the news as it was unfolding. And I was just pulling into my parking lot at that point in time, walked into my office, and I told one of the guys I shared office space with and said, hey, something's happening in New York. And my friend turned on a television set he had in his office, and he had it on CNN for the rest of the day. And so we followed everything that's happening on CNN. Or not, might not have been CNN, but it might have been. I don't know. All I know is we had a TV set on, and we had a TV set on. And at one point, when the second plane hit, it's like, what's that? Oh, it's a second plane. So that's where we were. Yeah, Steve says maybe you could have AI do the online courses for you. See, that's the funny thing about going to take a bar exam in person. They sit you at a table and hand you a blue book and go, here, write out your answers in your own handwriting. So Mike Toth, every law student needs those Professor Kingsfield moments. Joey says Drew and Mike stayed on the air longer that day. Yeah, so did Howard Stern, believe it or not. Brianna CC didn't know what the World Trade Center was until that day. Yeah, see, us older folk know that there had been an attempt on the World Trade Center years earlier where somebody had parked a van in the parking deck underneath it and attempted to take it down that way when the van exploded, but it didn't work. Susan MVB, the internet was very different back then. Oh, I'll tell you how different it was. I remember trying to get news that day, and there were websites that had crashed. CNN.com had crashed. Other news sites had crashed. And you'd sit there and refresh, and nothing, 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 nothing. So, Bob Kerflugen, what is your favorite Ramones album? Like, I don't get asked that every day. I'm going to get hate for this. I'm not saying it's my favorite album, but I do like End of the Century. And that's the one that Phil Spector produced for them. And it has violins and orchestration and stuff. And people are like, wait, that's not the Ramones. Oh, it is. Their version of Baby I Love You, and of course, Rock and Roll Radio are great. They're great. And although even the Ramones hated that album, which they did, it was the most successful album they ever had. So, you gotta kind of look at it and go, but what's your purpose here? I love these guys in the bands who don't want to succeed. Dan DM, are you an Ozzy Osbourne fan? Yes, I was. I am. Ozzy was a great guy. I'm convinced a lot of what he did was an act, although quite a bit of what he did later on was the result of chemicals and so on. A lot of his music is very, very thoughtful. It's actually fairly deep, and it's good music. And I love his stuff. I've got several of his CDs. Oh, Joel Cannon, I want to be sedated. Fred Blowers, any update on Coyote versus Acme? Not really. We're in kind of a holding pattern right now because we need them to get some better timelines about when the movie comes out, and then try to figure out where we can show it and so on. So we won't have any news net for a couple months. 858 Bill, does Steve or anyone else have any personal connections to historical events? For instance, I'd been on board the Edmund Fitzgerald, knew many of the lost because my dad worked on the boats. Well, I've mentioned this before. My uncle worked on a boat called the Leon Falk Jr. You can look that up, although it's no longer in existence, but the internet being what it is. And that was an iron ore boat that was a contemporary of the Edmund Fitzgerald. And I had been on board that ship, but never on board the Edmund Fitzgerald. So that's an interesting connection there. Fly Chomper Fly. I really like the Daughters of Albion album, which was produced by Leon Russell. Big fan of Leon Russell. I'm not familiar with the Daughters of Albion. One of my brothers had the album Carney, Manhattan Island Serenade, Tightrope. Great songs. Johnny Quest, was there a Steve Lehto MySpace page? No, I didn't do MySpace, nor GeoCities. Oh, boy. Johnny Z. Fradley, my favorite Ramones song is the one with only 3 chords. I thought most were 2 chords. No, I was kidding. Art asks, no, I've never seen Ozzy, nor I never saw the Ramones. But yeah, Dustin Carpenter, this is the 50th anniversary of sinking the Fitzgerald. Sandra Jones, everyone have a great day. Thank you. And thank you too, my friend. Steve, did you do AOL? Yeah, we actually we talked about this at length last weekend about how AOL sent out those CDs and they sent out probably over a billion of them. So pretty much everyone who was on the internet in the early 90s did AOL. Mike Lackner, when was your last drive-in movie and what did you see? Um, it was at a movie theater that no longer exists, obviously, because most of them don't. But it was a movie theater called the Troy Drive-In, right off I-75 near Oakland Mall. And I'm trying to remember. I saw several movies right around that time at the drive-in, and these may or may not have been the movie. But I saw a Kentucky Fried Movie at the drive-in. I saw, I'm pretty sure it was a Dracula, but the one with somebody else in it, Frank Langella. I'm not sure who it was, and a couple others. But back back when I was in high school, we'd go to the drive-ins periodically, so more than once. JB Weld never watched movies at the drive-in. Yeah, but you always had to know enough about it to where if somebody asked you, you could pretend like, oh, yes, no, no. Let me explain to you some of the nuances of the plot. The character development in the third act, I thought, kind of fell apart a little bit. They could have fleshed out that character earlier. Did you hear it? Dustin Carpenter just got a survey last year with an actual dollar bill showing through a window envelope. I've gotten a few of those. No, Chris Smith asking about Gary Oldman. No, that's a much more recent Dracula. I'm talking about a Dracula that came out like 78, 79, right around there. Prodigal Stranger, Catholic high school girls in trouble. Oh, boy. Michael Myers says drive-in movies remind me a lot of the song Night Moves by Bob Seger. Joel Cannon, did you hide in the trunk to cheap out? You know, I've seen that in movies. I never saw it in real life. But I remember one time going to a drive-in and having them actually ask us to open the trunk just in case. Guys like, you need to pop your trunk open. I'm like, why? Guys like, I want to make sure there's no people in there. I'm like, what? At first I like dead bodies. Like, dude, I'm here with my girlfriend. There aren't going to be other people in this car with us. Trust me. Dan Boyd, wasn't it in or near Detroit where the kids got in the control shack of the video billboard along I-75 and made the billboard play hardcore pornography? Yes, that happened up near Auburn Hills along I-75 a year or two ago, maybe longer ago than that. And all they did is they got in the control shack and reloaded some slightly different programming. But, you know, there they go. So Jay Klein, we've got to drive in about 10 miles from me in Amelia, Ohio. I know where there's about 5 or 6 still in Michigan. There's one up near Traverse City called the Cherry Bowl Drive-In. There's one near Flint. There's one down towards like Sturgis, Michigan, a little bit west of that. I forgot the name of it. One day I was down there, I was driving on country roads a couple years ago. I come around a corner, there's a drive-in movie theater still functioning. I'm like, what? Elliot Polak says, my blindness is why I'm so excited about going in person. What a coincidence to live here, but was born in the only other state to allow online was California. I'd go in person, got a 171 LSAT. Believe it or not, the University of Michigan, you might know this, University of Michigan Law School actually has provisions for students with visual impairments. And I know of at least 2 judges who were blind who went to U of M Law School. And they said, actually, and I know another attorney who went there also, just an attorney. And apparently they do very, very well helping people out there. So, Dan DM, are you a pie or cake guy? A good chocolate cake, chocolate frosting on a chocolate cake. I can do that. Pie, depends, but not a lot. Haven't done a lot of pie lately. Jerry Dodge says there's 9 drive-in theaters left in Michigan, according to Google. Wouldn't surprise me. I mean, I know where there's tons that no longer exist. There used to be one across the street, kind of from the Bad Axe radio station I worked at, WLEW, the Bad Axe Drive-In. And I drove by there in the mid 1980s, and they had just leveled it. And I think now there's a building there or something. But Mexican spec chocolate cream pie is good. Oh yeah. Uh, was it French silk? Yeah, that's good. Code Meester Beats key lime pie. Key lime pie. You know what's really funny? I went the longest time not knowing what the key in key lime pie meant. I'm like, why would they put a key in pie? It's a geographical designation from the Florida Keys. Kurt the Squirts' drive-ins were said to have subliminal messages for snacks. Well, they actually claimed it about all movie theaters at one point in time, but there have been entire books written pro and con about that, which I won't get into. Aaron Freeman, how do you level a drive-in theater? Bulldozer. Unless you thought I meant leveling it because it's uneven. Somebody suggests, I think it's Art S, that I need to get an American-made watch to go with the American-made cars. That's different. Because the reason I was always driving American cars was to support the American car industry because I was from Detroit. If I lived in Switzerland, I would tell you I would never buy anything but a Swiss watch for that reason. So, Nacho Kitty, I love pie, but she means the 3.14159 pie. Art S, the first drive-in theater was New Jersey. I believe that is true. I seem to recall that. Dan Diem, have you ever ridden a tandem bike? No, I have not. I used to be able to ride a unicycle, but it's been many years. And I've ridden, of course, like little Stingray bikes and 10 speeds and mountain bikes. And I currently own a mountain bike that cost more than my first 3 cars combined. But that's inflation for you. Vinny Northwest, did Lizzie Borden do it? You don't give an opinion in your book. Personally, I don't think so. No. Very, very strange. But she was not found guilty. We know that. But unfortunately, the Lizzie Borden case is one that still annoys a lot of people. So, standard deviation. You rode a unicycle by yourself? No, I rode a tandem unicycle. Jason Brindamar used to work near the drive-in at Wyoming in Detroit. Midnight shift, free movies outside on lunch break. I forgot that there were a couple big drive-ins down that way. There was also a drive-in on Telegraph up near the edge of Bloomfield Hills, and they had some very unfortunate incidences happen there, and they got shut down as a result. And then if you just went up Telegraph and hung a left at the Dixieland Flea Market, there's another another drive-in movie theater over there. I mean, there was a time when they were everywhere. But Mark Miller says not guilty. Does that mean innocent? No, the reason I'm saying this is there wasn't a lot of evidence pointing to her. It's just that it just seems so unlikely that what happened wouldn't have been her. But that's not enough for a conviction just to say, well, we don't know who did it. It must have been you. So, oh boy. Thomas Hines has a drive-in movie theater nearby with 4 screens that's operating. 4 screens, wow. So, are all 4 screens which way you point your car, or do they actually have different places to go? I'm kinda curious about that. Sean M, how'd you learn to ride a unicycle? The hard way. You get a unicycle, you go out to a tree, by a sidewalk, and you get up on it, you try to balance, you see how far you can go. And, if you're relatively athletic, you can teach yourself to ride pretty quickly. If you ride a bicycle in particular, I was probably 10 years old, 12 years old, but 3 of my older brothers also rode unicycles. We had 2 unicycles in the house. So, it was an interesting thing to do. Padre, our drive-in closed after a storm destroyed the screen. The marquee read, "Gone with the wind." Standard deviation, a hard way to learn unicycle involves the ER. Well, the key thing with a unicycle is if you're on a sidewalk that's flat and there's grass on both sides, you try to fall towards the grass, and you will fall down a bunch of times. And you try not to fall backwards. You try to fall forwards, and if you fall forwards, you can jump off and kind of run your way out of it. But yeah, you could get hurt. Nacho Kitty says that's a high ratio of unicycles. I'm not quite sure because this, let's see, Ken, Dave, Rick, me. So in a family of 6 boys, 4 of us could ride unicycles, and there were 2 unicycles in the house. So it depends on which ratio you're looking at. Tim Nossum, a tandem unicycle could use a Ford dual clutch transmission. Steve, can you juggle? I can juggle 3 things, like 3 baseballs or 3 tennis balls. I don't have 3 things here right now, and I won't do it, but what are you gonna do? Canadian Robot Lady is here. Sorry, I'm late. I guess this is hello, goodbye. But no, we have a half hour to go, my friend, because I started late. I started about 25 minutes late. So we'll have some time here. So feel free to fire questions at her because Heather, you might not know this, but I've been asked a million questions, including my favorite movie, whether I like pie or cake, and all kinds of other things. Oh boy. Epic A Train. I'm here, first time here while live. Really? Wow. 858 Bill, for what it's worth, I got pretty good at Frisbee. So did I. I carried a Frisbee with me like it was a security blanket between the age of like 12 and 16. I brought it to school. We played it at lunch. Anytime we were outside before or after school, flipping it around. Really, really good. The problem is that Frisbee, I'm guessing the patents ran out. Now there's a bunch of other companies making flying discs. But the Frisbee, world class Frisbee, and then there was another one that they made towards the very end that were really, really good. And I've looked at other flying discs, and they're not the same. So, JR, so we can ask Heather questions. Heather, will you marry me? Dude, get in line. Interesting, Mexican Spexos, do you have dogs following you for the Frisbee? Um, I don't remember dogs being interested in the Frisbee because it's not quite the same as throwing something for them to get, but standard deviation, ever play Frisbee golf or frolf? No, I never did. Never did. Steve, you disc golf? No, 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 no. Art asking you do the unicycle and the yo-yo at the same time. Of course, that's easy. 858 Bill, my favorite was the 165. Was that the heaviest of the ones? 'Cause remember, there's also one in the 140s. Because I'm tall. I'm 6'2". So for me, I got big hands, and so I prefer the larger ones that have the larger rim or lip on them. Blah blah blah. Are you good enough with a Frisbee to hit a woodchuck at 50 yards? No, but I do have a slingshot. Oh boy. Johnny Z. Bradley, remember the water rockets you'd pump up with water and air? I remember them, but I never had one. I seem to recall some friends of mine had those. Dan DM, do you like Fleetwood Mac? They're one of those bands that I kind of like. Neither here nor there. I like some of their stuff. I've never owned any of their music. I've never seen them live. So Mexican speckles, that's serious frisbeeing to know the weight of it. No, they were actually named that. You could get a frisbee that's simply a 165 or a 144, and that's what they're called. So if you're going to play frisbee, go, hey, bring your 144. Blah blah blah. I had a wrist rocket, dude. I just got one not so long ago, and I got it's like a bushel of clay pellets the size of like marbles, but they're biodegradable. They dissolve in water, so I don't feel bad shooting these things around my yard. Whenever woodchucks might show up. Now, I would never hurt the woodchuck. I will not hurt the woodchuck. But if I see him and I got a good beat on him, I might fling a biodegradable pellet near him to scare him away. Let's put it that way. Dan DM, have you ever had a celebrity on your channel? Not the typical definition of celebrity, no. Ed Bolian made an appearance, and Sam Crack sent me not a birthday, but an anniversary wish. But no, I don't have guests on my channel. So Terry B, I had an Australian Shepherd that would catch a frisbee all day long if she could. Yeah. Oh, if a dog's trained or brought up with them, absolutely. Dan Boyd, lighter fluid tennis ball cans and tennis balls. Oh yeah, or a potato gun, potato cannon. I've got a brother who's fascinated by that stuff, and more recently built a potato cannon. You haven't lived till you've seen potatoes being launched out of Lake Superior. Poof. Retired butcher boy. Do we start late? Yes, yes. Somebody said that wrist rockets are illegal in Massachusetts to own or to carry in public. I hear stories like that, and I'm always curious about it. About what makes something illegal. Because I mean, if wrist rockets are illegal, then are slingshots illegal, and so on. What of says you use that to scare away squirrels that are eating the bird seed, not to hit them, just to scare them off, and that's the point. And I've told people that you know, if I see there's also a couple stray cats. They're feral cats, and I know somebody who feeds them, and they reproduce, and they're just. And if I see a feral cat wander on my property, I will shoot over its head and like into the brush near it, and they freak out just from the sound. The sound makes them freak out. So wait. Stop spam. And M says potato cannon. Actually, you can use an ear of corn and it acts like a rocket. Why am I just learning this now? Really? I never thought of that. Standard deviation dog kibble makes excellent non-lethal wrist rocket ammo. Yeah, but then there's food out there for them. They'd be thinking about that, going, "Hey, there's more. This guy's shooting food at us." Chris Bulldog says they're illegal to own along with sling. You can't even own one. You can't have one in your house. You can't make one out of a branch with a Y in it and a piece of rubber cut from an inner tube of a bicycle. Really? What of says the clay shot is called clodhoppers. We also referred to ugly shoes as clodhoppers. I don't know why. Feral kitty, I built a tin can and string telephone with the girl next door, and we strung it between our bedroom windows. We got in trouble for cutting holes in our window screens. I was gonna say, couldn't you lift the screen up and run? But then maybe if you had put that down, that would have muted your connection. Interesting. Wow. Ram 50 V8, my last potato cannon used oxygen and acetylene. Yeah, that's going hardcore, my friend. Sean M, did you ever have a wooden boomerang? I did not, but I had an older brother who was fascinated by those things. He actually made a bunch. He found a book or an article on how to make a boomerang. I mean, I remember seeing like sitting there sanding the wood, and he'd go to the football field behind the local junior high school, and he got good. He could throw it and get it to come right back to him. I mean, my boomerang doesn't come back anymore. Jim Naden says that down here in Indiana farm country, clodhoppers were indeed work boots. And Code Meester Beat says, yes, something like boots or with aggressive treads. Aggressive treads. Grande Tacos, I used the term clodhopper with my wife. She looked at me like I was crazy. You didn't comment on her footwear and say, why are you wearing those clodhoppers, did you? 858 Bill, we made tennis ball cannons with the cannon lighter fluid. Yeah, we talked about that earlier along with the potato cannon. So Joel Cannon, how about lawn darts? I never had them, but I have friends who did. And I remember we managed to play without putting an eye out with them, but I mean, they were dangerous if misused. Dan DM, do you like to dance? I assume that's what that means. I am not a dancer. I have no rhythm. It's a medical condition. I could get federal funding for it. Oh boy. Steve found a boomerang in his yard several years ago. You try to wonder, like, where'd that come from? How'd it get here? Why didn't it go back? Jerry Dodge, I've got rhythm, I've got music. Who could ask for anything more? Steve, you raised the point about cornholes a lot funnier and safer than lawn darts. I bet right about now somebody's wishing they'd come up with a better name for that because it's like there's like professional leagues of it on like ESPN. So Ram 50 V8 says my last cannon was Chuck Young's Stug 3 tank barrel. 50? Was it a 50 millimeter or 75? There's a video of us test firing it on YouTube. Yeah, Canadian Robot Lady says lawn darts are always fun, but boy, you had to be careful. Art asks flamethrowers reduce lawn mowing time, and also they make clearing your driveway of snow more fun. Yeah, Steve says they could have called it bag toss. Although people are like, what's in the bag? uh, Jerry Dodge, the clackers. You mean the things you go like this on and the balls go up like this to smash back and forth? Yeah, it was designed to get the children to wreck it. Ram 50 V8, the Stug used the Pack 40 with a shortened breech, but ours used oxyacetylene. Okay, but again, was the Pack 40 a 50 millimeter? I think Pack 40 isn't 40 a reference to the year it was manufactured or first put into use. I could be wrong. JW, did you ever see the movie Class Action with Gene Hackman? Yes, I like that movie. It was a little unusual in the sense that Hollywood, what are the odds that a man's going to file a lawsuit? So the company that he's suing is going to hire the law firm where his daughter works, and the two of them are going to face off in a courtroom. But other than that, I liked that movie a lot because there's a lot of stuff in there that made me think like, oh, this is actually the kind of stuff that happens. I actually rewatched A Few Good Men about a week ago, and I had forgotten about the scene in the movie where Tom Cruise's character gets, I believe it's Kevin Bacon's character, to make him a really good offer if these guys will just plead guilty. And it's a good offer. It's a good offer. And Tom Cruise brings the offer to the guys, his clients, and they're insulted by it. And it reminded me of all the times I've gotten great offers from my clients. My clients are like, I want more. But it's different in a criminal setting. I will grant you that. But I remember thinking like, oh, I'd forgotten about that scene. So there you go. Dan DM, have you ever ridden a horse? Many times, but it's been a long while. Been a long while. When I was in high school, I had friends who loved to go horseback riding. There was a place near us, Roy's Ranch, and for $5 you could ride for an hour. And so we'd all ride out there and go for riding. Go for a ride a little while. A lot of fun. Ram 50 says the Pack 40 is a 75 millimeter. Okay, I knew it had to be either 50 or 75. Bill Van Ram, do you ever have a Cox 049 car or plane? The props for finger snappers. Yeah, I was always amazed that those things existed because the little airplane engines are so cool. They're so cool, but they're so dangerous, especially if it's got a prop on it and you're trying to start the prop by hand. I saw somebody start the prop and the prop came around and went whoosh, right dead center into the person's thumb. I was, it was, I mean, I get ill thinking about it, but he turned out to be okay and he lived much, much longer than that. But I remember seeing people playing with the cars. You put a car on a string and an 049 in the back and just let it run till it runs out of fuel. Hey, Law Talk with Mike is in the house. Give me one of these, I think. I assume that's what that means. It must mean this, right? But we were talking about if I ever had any stars on my show. Well, I've been on his show, I believe, but I've never had him on mine because, again, I don't have guests on my show. So, Mike Myers, I feel ashamed when I was a teen. We shot Roman candles at each other. Well, as long as you live to see today, you're probably okay, right? But Dimebag Coins is in the house. Bob Blah Blah says Lunken Airport in Cincinnati still has a round circle track for planes and cars. Really? With the Cox 049 engines? eBay. Hey, Steve. Hey, eBay. Roxanne's in the house. Oh, Grande Taco. We had a Cox engine that my dad ran in a circle, the car, till the gas ran out, which is how you stopped them. Our Pekingese had a blast trying to take that thing down. You could also stop them by throwing a towel or a rag at them and fouling the prop. And I remember my brother had one of they called it a prop rod, but it was a little, it's almost like a think of like a midget racer, but about that big. 4 wheels, and then there's the big prop on the back and the engine facing that way. And you get it started, you put it on the ground and let it go. And it starts zipping around. And I remember a couple of times where it got out of control. And either my brother or one of his friends chasing after it and throwing a towel on top of it to get it to stop because the prop will get tangled up in the towel. And it wouldn't hurt the prop. Law Talk with Mike says, hey, Roxanne, I'm just relaxing. I like this channel. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate that. eBay, who comes up with the endings on your videos, the outros? That'd be Heather, the Canadian robot lady who is in the house right now. I believe she was chatting a moment ago. And she is a professional voiceover artist from Canada. You might detect a slight accent when she says a word like about, which we would say about, and she'd say about. And when she says it, it sounds correct. So, Sean M. Ever gone paintballing? Twice, believe it or not. Twice in my entire life. Once when I was in law school, some friends of mine talked me into doing it. And then a year or two out of law school, I had an attorney friend who wanted to do it. Went and did it one time, and I had a hard time running around with goggles on and stuff. I don't know, out in the woods. Bob Blah Blah says, hey, I just sent you a message. Check your messages. Let's see what Bob Blah Blah sent me. Oh, aerial photograph. And the track is, in fact, circular, as seen from space. Cool. Very cool. Thank you. Prodigal Stranger says we should get all the YouTube lawyers together and start a members only called the Esquire Club. Oh, Ram 50V8. I still swear I hear Heather's voice every time I have a go-to webinar session. It's kind of funny. I had people ask me and they go, hey, I know for a fact I heard her voice. And I've asked her a couple times where people said, this is where I heard it, but she's like, nope, that wasn't me. So yeah, 858 Bill says they used to break the sticks off of bottle rockets to make them go unpredictably. One little factoid I'll tell you: if you ever launched model rockets like Estes model rockets, you take a model rocket engine and then you get a dowel, a square dowel, like a dowel that's the sides are square like that, and you can glue it to the side and let the glue dry, and now you've got a big bottle rocket because all it is it's a rocket engine with a stick that acts the same way a bottle rocket stick does, and you can pull the fuse out of a firecracker and fold it, stick it up there, and light the fuse and run away, and that thing will go a quarter of a mile high. In fact, it might go higher than that. And if you want to, you can take a second engine and glue it to the top of the first engine, and then put the stick on that and make the stick longer. And then you got a 2-stage bottle rocket. I've launched a bunch of those out over Lake Superior before. They might not ever come down, but it's fun. Expensive too, but fun. Art S, did you do model rockets? Of course. That's how I know all about Estes model rockets. A C65, a B64. Sam, as I am here, I'm an hour late. Too many conflicting live streams. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. People complain. They say, Steve, you're doing these videos on Sunday, these live streams. What about football? And I'm like, I always forget there's football on Sunday. I watch football on Saturday like God intended. Alex A, laser tag is fun. I've never done laser tag. I think that's just a little bit below my age range, I think. Jerry Dodges still have a model rocket kit and some engines, just no actual rockets left. I actually, it's about 10, 15 years ago now, friend of mine's son got into model rockets. And just for the fun of it, I ordered a couple and I built them. And I went out with him and his son. We launched model rockets and I put one on somebody's roof. And I went over and knocked on the door. Nobody's home. So I carefully climbed up on their fence and reached up and I managed to get the rocket off their roof. And that was the last time I've ever done that. Johnny Z. Bradley says you can make a tiny rocket from a match and aluminum foil. I've done that too. I forgot I had a book about fun little things you can do, and it had that in there. I remember doing it a couple times. They don't go very far, but it's fun. John N. Jr. Can a father be on the other side of his daughter? You're referring to the movie Class Action we mentioned earlier. Hypothetically, they could be. Wouldn't that be a bias? Well, it's up to the client, to the client's care, but it's a civil case. It wasn't a criminal case. So Sam as I am says this live stream is part of a weekly therapy session. Oh, turn it into your insurance company. See if they'll pay for it. Oh, yeah. Code Mr. Beats had the Camrock, the model rocket that had a 110 film canister in the rocket for taking aerial photos. It was lost in the process. I had one of the various generations of that, and I shot an entire roll of film on it. And the developer came back with nothing. Like none of the pictures took. I'm like, what? It's annoying. But I mean, now you can get them with like digital cameras and they shoot video and stuff. It's amazing. David Zaradnansky is watching this and the NHRA Reading Nationals simultaneously. I still like watching the NHRA. It's to me, I still am blown away by the technology that goes into that. And you hear the stories about how much horsepower they're putting out and rebuilding those engines every so often and so on. It's amazing. And they shortened the track, of course, a while back, and the cars just got faster. Oh. Canadian Robot Lady points out that she did, in fact, record the one outro. Please mind the gap. If you've been to London, you know what that means. Mind the gap. Jerry Dodge, you got me dialed in perfectly. Did you ever get into slot cars? Yes. And here's the thing. Slot cars were a blast, and there was a place near my house on Woodward Avenue in Royal Oak, Michigan called Tiny Tim's, and they had 5 slot car tracks, including one huge one. And you'd go in there, you'd bring your own controller, you'd bring your own car, and you'd walk up there and you'd buy like an hour of time, and they just set the timer. And you could race for an hour, and I had a little tackle box. I had a couple cars, a couple controllers, a bunch of like extra tires, and it was crazy. It was, but and it kind of fell by the wayside, but it was a lot of fun. A lot of fun. Michael Leppelman, what's your favorite law movie or TV show? I've mentioned before my favorite law movie is Anatomy of a Murder. Um, I'm not really big on the TV shows. I've not seen any TV shows that don't kind of go off the rails after a little while. Blah blah blah. My car always flew off the track. Yeah, they'll have banked curves, but you still got to slow down for them because the track could be kind of slick. And I mean, I remember guys who were on the inside track who'd go out of control, and their car would go off and knock out the car next to it. So you're driving perfectly well, but the idiot inside you just knocked you off the track. That's not fun. JB Weld, Perry Mason. I haven't seen Perry Mason in a while. I know it's on one of the channels that I get. Either My TV, Cozy TV, one of those. Still has it. Yeah, Mark Miller, the HO scales. Yeah, I remember the little smaller ones. Art S, did the Matthias shirt come in? No, no. We think there's issues with international shipping. Dan Boyd, my parents had the book Anatomy of Murder. They had to correct my pronunciation of anatomy as I was new at reading at the time. Yeah, and of course, Garrison Keeler's got a whole bit he does on that on News from Lake Wobegon about how, as a voracious reader as a child, he had all kinds of mispronounced words in his head because he'd never said them out loud. And so he said he went to the museum to see the Egyptian mummy. Oh boy. Canadian Robot Lady likes Better Call Saul. I watched a couple episodes. I just didn't quite get it. So Mustang MGO5 says it's on Me TV in my area. Yeah, Me TV. I'm sorry, I said My TV. Me TV. I'm pretty sure it is here too. I'd have to just check it out. Jerry Dodge, we addressed this earlier. There's no time frame yet on the Coyote versus Acme showing, primarily because we don't know an exact timeline, like when it will be out, how many theaters are showing it, and so on. So we got to do that. Canadian Robot Lady asks, "Did you watch Breaking Bad?" I watched a few episodes when it first came out. I kind of lost interest. So what can I tell you? Isaac Bob York liked Lincoln Lawyer. I saw Lincoln Lawyer. It didn't do it for me. I don't know why. Jerry Dodge says Coyote versus Acme has a release date of 8/27/26. Yeah, but like how many theaters are going to be showing it? What's it going to be up against? And I think even people in the industry right now couldn't tell me for certain, what it would cost me to have that available, like say mid-September or something like that. Scuba 535, thanks for joining on my 10.1 mile walk today. I'm glad we could hang out with you. Mike Leah, did you ever watch Emergency about the LA Fire? Yeah, Rampart 51, of course. That's what we learned about Ringer's lactate. Ringer's lactate solves everything. Guy's head got amputated. Give me some Ringer's lactate. Person over here is suffering from, I don't know, demon possession. Get me some Ringer's lactate. Oh, boy. Ram 50 V8, Boston legal. Again, that's one I did not get into. I don't. In fact, I'm not even sure I ever saw one. I know people who did watch it, but I just never did. So Thomas Hines says Ringer's just salt water with some sugar in it. In other words, watered down Gatorade. I'm drinking Ringer's lactate. I know, I'm just joking. I remember it's kind of like on House. Every single episode, there's two or three things they check on every single patient because it turns out that's something you got to check on everybody. Oh boy. Jay Klein, L.A. Law. I remember watching L.A. Law. It came out while I was in law school, and at first I kind of liked it, and then they started getting absurd. I think at one point, doesn't Arnie Becker fall out of the ceiling because he's in the ceiling with his secretary and he falls on the desk in front of somebody? I mean, come on. Mark Miller claims the Lions are beating the Bears 31-14. I think if they win this game, don't they go even at 1-1? Moon Invader is Coyote versus Acme based on the Ian Fraser short story. Yes. Fetting Butterpants and others point out Ringer's lactate with D5W as opposed to WD-40, which won't do any good. Yeah, the prodigal stranger, they've always got to rule out amyloidosis and sarcoidosis. It's easy for you to say. Bob Blah Blah says, thanks, Steve, worth the wait. Mike Leo is Station 51, KMG 365. JW, does a jury have the power to award a higher amount than what was originally sued for, i.e., the verdict? Yes, yes. And that's an interesting. This is actually a topic that would go on for hours. I like the movie with Paul Newman and the verdict. It is very realistic in some respects. There's a couple minor problems. If I'd had the screenplay before they shot it, I would have said, just fix this. No one will miss it, but just fix this. But the important thing is that a jury is asked, here's what we think you should award us. And a jury can come back and give you 0, or a jury can give you whatever they want. They tend to follow one or the other's suggestions so that if one side goes, give them nothing, the other side goes, give us $1 million, they're probably going to give you somewhere between 0 and $1 million, or 0 or $1 million. But they can do whatever they want. And so the interesting thing, I think what they're trying to do with that case, and I think it may have been roughly based on a true story of some sort, was that the Paul Newman character was such a sad sack that and I hate to get into this, but his self-esteem was such that he's in front of this jury, he knows his client's entitled to something, and he doesn't even ask them for enough. And the jury says, no. The jury liked his case. So there you go. Prodigal stranger, can a judge award the ham sandwich? See, I always think the ham sandwich is more of something that you get as opposed to being a party. But they do talk about trying to indict a ham sandwich. Harley D says remittitor is when the judge can lower the award. There's also a thing called additor, where a judge can increase the award. Another topic for another day because those are both Latin phrases. And so there you go. Dan Boyd says Lawyers in Love, which is a great song. I'm not sure how deeply meaningful it is. It's Jackson Brown. I've always liked the song, but what are you going to do? So. Alex A says, don't watch Suits. It would make any real lawyer cringe. If you can get past that, it's a great show. It just never popped up on my radar. Bill Van Ram, does the jury have any power during a trial if they want a question asked? Yes. So what often happens during jury selection or sometime thereafter, the court will tell the jurors, by the way, if you have questions, you can submit them to the bailiff or submit them to me. And I've seen cases before where where a jury's allowed to ask questions. But more often than not, if a jury actually has a question, like during the trial, heaven forbid, um, they would have to submit it in writing to the judge. The judge would have to talk to the attorney and say, what are your thoughts on this? Because you don't want anything that's going to be appealable, especially in a criminal case. But it's another story altogether. But I've seen cases before where jurors are like, "How come nobody addressed this?" And there might be a great reason, there might not be. You never know. You never know. Michael Myers says, my wife was a prosecutor. She loved to replace ham with roast beef. Are you talking about in whether or not someone could indict a ham sandwich? They could indict a roast beef sandwich? Or are you talking about in real life? Oh. Thomas Hines, my niece graduated Miami Law School, summa cum laude, and passed her exam first time she took it. The bar exam, good. Congratulations. Randy Regal says Primal Fear is a really good lawyer movie also. It's been a long time since I saw it, but I seem to recall it was good. And in that case, with Richard Gere, uh, and is it Norton, the actor, who convinces the attorney that he's crazy, but he's not. Oh, I just ruined it for you. Sorry. Oh boy. Standard deviation says roast beef is shadier than ham. Indict the roast beef. So that's going to do it. I'm going to wrap it up. We've been here for 2 hours. I got a late start. I apologize for that. For those of you who didn't catch me at the beginning, I had an important phone call I had to make exactly at noon Central Time, which I didn't realize. I thought we were noon Eastern Time, but long story. Somewhere down the road, I'll explain to you what it's about because it might be something you all see. And until then, which is next week, I'll talk to you live. In the meantime, videos as always on my channel. Behave yourself. Bye bye.